Hello class, today we're going to talk about writing the academic title. Alright, so many of you have written titles for papers, but very few of my students in my experience have had practice writing the academic title. A lot of your teachers will not require academic titles, but if you want to impress and wow, then use an academic title. But for this class, so that you can practice the concept, it is a hard and fast requirement. All of your major essays in this class must have the two-part academic title. All right, so here are the components. You have to have the main title. The main title is where you get to be clever or humorous. You can make an oblique statement. You can make a general statement. You can provide a portion of a quote. You might use a character name or a title from a work. But this is where your imagination comes into play. The second part of the title is going to be much more specific. It's going to have an extremely clear thesis connection. So remember that the very first thing that I will read in your paper is going to be your title. So this is your chance to make a good impression immediately. This is also a chance for you to demonstrate your ingenuity, your creativity, your originality. Many of the papers in this class are going to be very prescribed. Sometimes my students chafe a little bit. They're used to giving free rein to their imagination. A lot of the writing that they've done in previous classes has been creative writing, but academic writing is a different sort of animal. And often in your other classes, whether it's history, government, sociology, psychology, whatever, you are probably going to have limited topics that you have to write on. So in academia, the truth of the matter is you have to get used to writing on subjects that may not be your first choice. So anyway, your title is your first chance to make a good impression upon your reader. The other thing, remember I've said this before, when I grade your paper, I am looking for the interrelationship between title, thesis, and topic sentences. So in your title, I must see a connection to your thesis. It should be clear from your title that it is somehow reflecting what is going to be the central point of your paper. What is your focus word? What is your argumentative edge? Somehow, some way, it should be reflected in that title. Now, here's another thing that you want to think about. The colon, dot over dot. This is a hard and fast requirement. Please do not put a period. Please do not use a semicolon. A colon in English always means explanation, amplification, and elaboration follows. So if you said to somebody, I'm going to the store to buy the following, well, you wouldn't say it, you would write it. I'm going to the store to buy the following, colon, eggs, milk, and butter. All right, so the eggs, milk, and butter is the explanation of the previous part, what you're going to the store for. So that is and you can see as you look through all of the documents that I've uploaded into our class, you'll notice that almost all of them I have modeled two-part academic titles. So writing a sophisticated paper, that could be anything, right? It could be an introduction, it could be the conclusion, it could be the body paragraphs, it's the thesis, but here's where I bring it down to the specific. This particular issue is going to be how to write strong academic titles. So here's some other things to think about. Please do not put your entire title in caps. One thing that I don't have up here, but I just thought of, make sure that your title is in the same font as the rest of your paper. Your heading, your title, your introduction, body conclusion, it should all be in the same font. Same font, same size of font. Never underline your entire title. That's a no-no. Neither do you put your entire title in quotation marks. In terms of capitalization, you always capitalize the first word of the main title and the first word of the subtitle. Always, always capitalize the first word of the main title, the first word of the subtitle, and all other significant words except articles like an or the, or words that are prepositions like for, infinitives like to, and there's several examples in the document that's uploaded into the course. All right, so here are a couple of examples to look at. This one is, these are in your documents, but I'll reiterate here. All right, so let's just look at the main title, this part right here, Your Money or Your Life. Okay, if you did not have the rest of it, if you did not have the subtitle and all you saw was the main title, Your Money or Your Life, you wouldn't know exactly what the paper is about. Now for me, when I hear Your Money or Your Life, I think of that classic stick-up pose, right? You're walking in a dark alley, a guy comes up and he sticks a gun in your rib cage, or he holds a knife at your throat and he robs you, right? He mugs you. He says, give me your money or I'll take your life. All right, so that's what I think of when I see that, and I think that's what that student intended in that clever main title. But it's still a little oblique. Oblique means it's unclear. All right, so it's attention getting, because that's what you want to do. You want to get the reader's attention. But then this is where you got to bring it down to earth and tell the reader what you're really writing about, and it has to have a connection to the thesis. So then when I see healthcare problems for people without insurance, then I know what the paper is really going to be about, and the main title takes on new significance. So then I know that this is a paper about what happens to the uninsured. So if people are uninsured, then they can't afford good health care. And if you can't afford good health care and you can't go to the doctor and you can't pay for the medication, then you end up potentially losing your life. So the money in this buys the insurance, and if you don't have the money and you don't have insurance, then you have healthcare problems that can cause you to lose your life. So that is a very clever title. So it starts out with this main title that calls into mind that classic stick-up phrase, but then this brings it back down to earth and explains what the paper is really going to be about. Here's another one, Carrying the Cross, the burdens of emotions and the things they carried. Now if you just saw this first part of the title, Carrying the Cross, most people are going to cue into the word cross, and they're going to think about the Christian religion and the crucifixion of Christ. And because Christ, on the way to Gethsemane, carried the cross on his shoulders. So we think, you just can't help but think, oh, this is going to be a paper about Christianity. But remember what this subtitle does. It clarifies for the reader what the paper's really about. And then we get and we see, no, this is about the burdens of emotions in the short story, The Things They Carried. And then were you to read the entire paper, it would make more sense, because the central character in this story, The Things They Carried, his name is Jimmy Cross, and his initials are JC, which of course reminds the reader of Jesus Christ. So this is a very clever title, but it also connects to not the burden of the cross that Jesus carried, but the burden that Jimmy Cross carries, because he's a platoon sergeant who is in charge of soldiers in the Vietnam War, and it's about the difficulties that they face emotionally, not so much physically, but the emotional burdens of being under the constant threat of death. All right, so a couple of more things. Notice that in each case, the main title is separated by the subtitle with a colon. Look at the capitalization. Notice that or isn't capitalized, and for isn't capitalized, and of isn't capitalized, and in isn't capitalized. But notice that the is capitalized after the colon, because the first word in the main title, the first word of the subtitle, first word of the main title, first word of the subtitle is always going to be capitalized. The reason the things they carried is in quotation marks is because that's the name of the short story, and so the student is referring to the short story's name in the title, and that's perfectly acceptable. So there's a big difference between putting your entire title in quotation marks and putting a piece of the title in quotation marks as appropriate. And I'm just going to throw this in here for free. When do you use quotation marks and when do you use italics? Short works are in quotation marks, longer works are in italics. So short stories go in quotation marks, the names of novels are italics. The name of a song, a single song, quotation marks. The name of an entire album is going to be in italics. A chapter in a novel is, if it has titles, the chapter will be in quotation marks. The entire novel is underlined. If it's an article in a magazine, the short article is in quotation marks, but the entire title of the magazine is in italics. All right, so to briefly recap, one of the best ways that you can write a sophisticated title is to start with your academic title, main title, colon, subtitle. Main title is where you can be general, or you can oblique, or you can be humorous or clever. You explain it in the subtitle and make sure you always connect to the thesis. Avoid all caps, avoid underlining titles, don't put the entire title in a quotation mark. Oh, and one more thing, I just thought of this. Some of you might have looked at this and thought, what about this second line? Most of the times when you write your two-part titles, it's all going to fit on one line, but if it spills over to the second, that's perfectly fine. Probably if I weren't writing on a whiteboard and I were actually typing it, and it did spill over to the second line, I'd probably put the main title on one line, and I'd probably put this entire subtitle on a second line. But that's just, a matter of preference. Alrighty, so now you know how to write an academic title, and I will expect to see those kinds of titles on all the papers that you write for me. Alright, have a good day.